We have gotten word over the last week or so that, guys like Rocco Spindler, Pat Coogan out of the transfer portal at Notre Dame have Michigan interest. We know that we've talked about this, I feel like, several times at this point. So I don't know that we do, a half hour on the state of the Michigan offensive line or the state of the offense or what this portal class has looked like. But I think the consensus has kind of been you probably needed one more plug and play starter somewhere. And a lot of people have said tackle. I've been open to it just being anywhere as you try to find what your best five is for next season. No guarantee you get both of these guys. No guarantee you even get one of these guys. But your thoughts on Michigan jumping into the mix for Rocco Spindler, who's a guy that from Michigan, someone they were in on during the recruiting process, and the center as well.
Yeah, there's mutual interest. I mean, starting with Spindler, seems like he might get on campus here maybe soon. He's seen Indiana is visiting Nebraska as well, so we'll see where it goes. I would imagine this late in the game, the value for these guys is pretty high. They enter the portal as guys who, this goes for both Spindler and Coogan, who, we're probably not going to start next year at Notre Dame. They have started a lot of games in South Bend over the last couple of years, but, didn't really win jobs without somebody else going down with an injury, that sort of thing. Now entering the portal as guys with a bunch of experience. They've played in big games. They've gone on a run. I mean, you start the national championship game. That's pretty good to put on your resume, especially for a team that was pretty physical like Notre Dame. So I'd imagine that they're going to command some pretty big offers here in the transfer portal. So we'll see if Spindler, if they can get him on campus, somebody who didn't win the starting job coming out of fall camp last year, replacement or guy who won the starting job, Billy Schrouth, gets injured in week 3. He comes in and didn't give the job back even when Schrouth got healthy. Not sure if he was 100% healthy or what, but they just kept it rolling with him. And then Coogan, kind of a similar deal at center. He's played guard in the past, but you're right. Like, I was filling out, and it's up on the site over at thewolverine.com right now, our projected depth chart for the offense. The defense will come tomorrow on Wednesday, and it's not that easy to fill out the offensive line part. It's kind of a guessing game at this point, and as you write in the notes there underneath the section on the offensive line, this will not be the offensive line. It will change, whether it's position changes from tackle to guard, or it's a freshman coming in and winning a job, or it's, one of the incoming transfers, Lawrence Hattar from Ferris State, and Brady Norton from Cal Poly coming in and, proving themselves. I had a tough time putting them with the ones right now, just because I don't think they come here from a lower level and automatically, win a job. I mean, I think obviously it's a way too early depth chart, so nobody's won a job yet, but I think they got some work to do to be able to do that. So it's pretty open. I would think tackle is something you would want to look at maybe in the spring when there are more options. And then one of these two interior guys right now, if you could land them, I think would be big. My question is, can they go through spring practices, given that it's January 28th right now and classes started weeks ago? The ad drop date was last week at Michigan. So will it impact spring ball at all? Will they be able to get on campus, get acclimated? Those sorts of things are big questions for me. But regardless, I think even in the spring, if you could bring them in the spring, summer, those would be solid additions. These guys are not guys who are probably going to start at Notre Dame, like I said, next season, but they do have experience. They started big games there this past year and helped them, win a bunch of games.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the depth chart that you put out, which, I mean, you do a great job. You just get to this offensive line, and you're right. You don't want to come right out and say, and I'm not saying that you said this or we're saying this, but more or less, we have no idea what that's going to look like. Especially you look at a guy, if you land a guy like Coogan from Notre Dame, I think he's played some guard too. So you'd immediately, a lot of people would say, oh, well, there's your starting center, there's your backups, whatever it is. But it would be another name to throw in the mix in the interior. And this is quite the little puzzle they have to work themselves through here, because the thing with these Notre Dame guys potentially being on the shelf until the summer or spring summer is I'm not as worried about that as you would about, a Brady Norton or a Lawrence Hittar. Although I think Norton is on campus, but Hittar, in particular, we've heard probably can't go through spring ball, things like that. I don't have an issue with that when you bring in guys that have played Power 4. I know Notre Dame's not in the conference, but they do play Power 4 caliber of football. That's the type of program that they are. I think you are probably more likely to just got to keep them in shape and throw them into the mix once fall camp rolls around. But
they played January 20th too.
That's true. There's not. They probably need to be put on the shelf a little bit, anyways, right? So, for me, I think that the transfer portal is for additions like this, guys that have starting experience, want to go to another school that has a need at the position that they play. Michigan clearly fits the bill there. I've said this. I think with what they have, they can kind of find a way to cobble it together at tackle. But to me, the most disappointing aspect of this year's team was the interior, was the drop off. And there was always going to be a drop off from Zach Sinner, Trevor Keegan, Drake Nugent. There was just naturally going to be a drop off there. But that was the three in the middle this year. And Josh Preeb played okay. Crippen was okay at times. I was disappointed with Giovanni Elhadi. He'll be back, competing for a starting job. Probably, you'd pencil him in for a starting job right now, just based on what they have. But that's the group I think, as we sit here on January 28th, it's going to kind of make or break what that offensive line looks like. Because, Link Sprague did some okay things in the bowl game. I think Babalola coming in as a 5-star freshman could get some time early, but you never want to throw that on a freshman early. If they do close this thing out with Ty Haywood, that's going to be a guy that doesn't show up until the summer. So I'm not really banking on him for next year if he does come. So yeah, it's just, at this point, I don't know that there's a ready-made solution, but you can add a few more variables that lift the level of competition, and hopefully you get someone that emerges as a bona fide winner of a job. Whereas last year it felt like at the tail end of fall camp, they were expanding some of those position battles to try and find someone.
Yeah, and the depth right now, like you said, a lot of it would be relying on a freshman to at least be in the 2 deep. Andrew Babalola probably. I know Blake Frazier, who's entering his redshirt freshman season, dealt with an injury late in the year. Sprague got some experience. They talked really highly about him, but then, Evan Link, Brady Norton, they see him as a tackle who can play on the inside as well. But it's a little bit dicey. It's hard to fill out that 3 deep. A couple of years ago, I think I was in the 4s. We were projecting because you kind of knew where it stood from various ways. But right now, you did lose a lot of your depth. You lost your Raheem Andersons and your Dominic Jadis, transferring as well to Missouri. So you have less depth. You have less proven starters. So it is a little bit dicey. I will say this, like if you bring in Pat Coogan, who started at center, like we said, for Notre Dame's run to the national championship game, you're getting a guy who could potentially be the heartbeat of your offensive line. Now, he'd probably be at left guard or right guard because you have Crippen coming back at center. Typically a center is kind of that guy, but have you seen his pregame speeches to the offensive line room before they run out on the field? It's incredible.
I have not.
Oh my gosh. All right. We'll look them up after this. People do that. It's all over Twitter, probably on YouTube as well. He talks about like 4 quarters of FU football, and they actually break before they run out, it's the F word on 3, 1, 2, 3, F. Like he's crazy. He's a madman. He's a maniac. He's exactly what you want your offensive lineman to look like, especially the guy who could be leading the room. Of course, he'll be a newcomer to the room if Michigan does end up going this direction and Coogan wants to come here. But you can be a leader in that position. I think Drake Nugent did it. I think Oluwatimi did it to an even larger extent a couple seasons ago, 3 years ago now, where he was an alternate captain by the time the season rolled along after going through spring ball and really finding his voice. So Pat Coogan, I don't know if he has a voice left after all the screaming he did down the stretch there, but if he does, I think he'll be a valuable one if he does end up at Michigan.
I love that. I think that's maybe the biggest thing they were missing on the offensive line was just trying to keep it PG here, but just a bastard, like a guy that just gets after it, right? And hearing that is kind of exciting. We'll see if Michigan finds a way to land him, because I think they were missing a guy like that